The room didn't go quiet all at once. It happened in layers. First, the laughter faded. Then the clinking of glasses slowed. And finally, there was just one voice left. My father's. I don't have a daughter. At first, people smiled, like it was some kind of joke. The kind that doesn't land but no one questions. But this wasn't that. There was no smile in his voice. No hesitation. No softness. Just certainty. And then the silence changed. It wasn't polite anymore. It pressed against the room, heavy, suffocating. Because I was standing right there. Breathing. Shaking. Existing. And in that moment, something inside me didn't break. It aligned. Because part of me had always known. For 30 years, I lived with a feeling I could never explain. Not a memory. Not a moment. Just a quiet, constant distance. Like standing in a family photo where everyone else knows exactly where they belong. And you don't. From the outside, my childhood looked normal. Birthdays with candles melting too fast. School pictures taped to the fridge. Dinners where everyone sat in the same place, every single night. Everything looked right. But something underneath it all felt rehearsed. Like we were following a script no one ever talked about. And somehow, I was the only one who didn't get a copy. My father wasn't cruel in the obvious ways. He didn't yell. He didn't disappear. He showed up. He provided. He did everything a good father is supposed to do. But there was a line he never crossed. Something invisible. But always there. He never chose me. Not in the small moments. Not in the big ones. If there were two options, he picked the other one. And as a child, you don't question that. You adapt. You become quieter. More observant. You learn which version of yourself feels safest. You learn how to exist in a space where love feels conditional. Without ever being told the conditions. And the scariest part. You start to believe it's your fault. My mother tried to fill that space. She was warmth where he was distance. She defended me in ways so small. Most people would miss them. A hand on my shoulder. A look across the room. A quick shift in conversation when something felt off. But she never explained anything. Never corrected him. Never told me why things felt different. And that silence became its own kind of answer. There's a term in psychology called ambiguous loss. It's when something is missing, but not completely gone. A person is there, but emotionally absent. A relationship exists, but never feels real. That's what my childhood was. Not broken, just incomplete. And that kind of absence, it changes you. So I did what most people do when something doesn't make sense. I tried to fix myself. I worked harder. Loved deeper. Gave more than I received. Because somewhere inside me, there was a quiet belief. If I become enough, he'll choose me. But he never did. And when a parent withholds love, even silently, it doesn't stay in childhood. It follows you. Into your relationships. Into your decisions. Into your identity. It shows up in the way you apologize too quickly. In the way you over-explain yourself. In the way you feel replaceable. Even when you're not. And for years I carried one question with me. What's wrong with me? But the truth is, that question was never mine to carry. The retirement party was supposed to be a celebration. 35 years of routine, of discipline, of a life that looked solid from the outside. People stood up one by one, telling stories about my father. How kind he was. How reliable. How he made people feel seen. And as I listened, something inside me shifted. Because they were describing a man I didn't know. A version of him I had never met. And I sat there thinking, why not me? Why was I the exception? Then came his speech. He thanked everyone. Colleagues, friends, even people I barely recognized. And then someone asked, "What about your daughter?" A simple question, but it changed everything. He paused, and then he said it. "I don't have a daughter." No anger. No confusion. Just clarity. And clarity can be more brutal than cruelty. Because cruelty leaves room for apology. Clarity doesn't. I don't remember falling. I don't remember who helped me up. All I remember is the feeling. Not shock, but recognition. Because suddenly, everything made sense. Every distance, every silence, every moment I felt like I didn't belong. It wasn't imagined. It was real. But the truth didn't come from him. It came later that night. In a quiet kitchen. Under a dim light that made everything feel more honest than it should have been. My mother was sitting at the table. A cup of tea in her hands. Cold. Untouched. She didn't look surprised to see me. She looked tired. Like someone who had been carrying something heavy for far too long. "I think it's time," she said softly. And just like that, 30 years of silence began to unravel. I wasn't his daughter. Not biologically. The story wasn't dramatic. No scandal. No explosive betrayal. Just quiet decisions. Before my father, there was someone else. Someone she loved. Someone she lost. And by the time she found out she was pregnant, he was already gone. My father came later. Stable. Reliable. Safe. Willing to build a life. But only under one condition. He agreed to stay, she said. But only if we never spoke about it again. And so they didn't. They buried the truth. Built a life on top of it. Hoped it would disappear. But buried things don't disappear. They grow. In silence. In tension. In the spaces between words. And children feel that. Even when they don't understand it. For 30 years. I lived in a story where I existed. But was never fully claimed. And the most painful part. They both knew. Maybe not consciously every day. But enough to shape everything. And in that moment, everything could have shattered. But it didn't. Because alongside the pain, there was something unexpected. Relief. The question that followed me my entire life. What's wrong with me? Finally had an answer. Nothing. There was nothing wrong with me. I was just living inside a truth no one was brave enough to say out loud. In the weeks that followed, my past began to rearrange itself. Memories shifted. Conversations changed meaning. Even the silence started to make sense. But understanding something doesn't erase it. It just gives it a name. And naming something is the first step to letting it go. I never confronted my father. Not the way people expect. No dramatic argument. No final scene. Because not every story ends with closure. Sometimes, closure is quiet. It's the moment you stop asking someone to love you, when they've already chosen not to. It's realizing their inability to love you was never a reflection of your worth. It was just their limitation. My mother and I talk more now. Not about everything. Not all at once. But enough. Enough to begin again. This time without silence. Because maybe this story isn't about betrayal. Or even truth. It's about what exists in between. The space where we try to understand who we are. Through people who are still trying to understand themselves. Flawed. Afraid. Human. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Identity isn't something you're given. It's something you build. Piece by piece. From truth. From pain. From clarity. That night, my father took something from me. But my mother's truth. It gave me something far more powerful. The kind of clarity that makes you realize you were never the problems. And once you see that, you don't go back. You move forward. Finally knowing exactly where you stand.